What's up, everybody? Happy Monday and welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing. On today's episode, we are going to recap the Packers' win against the New York Giants 27-20, their fifth win on the season, which is crazy, when scoring exactly 27 points. That still doesn't seem like a real stat, but it is. Quick look at the game summary. It was a weird one. The Packers had 296 total yards in the game. The Giants outgained them 336 to 296. So partially you can explain that by the final stat that I'll read. The Giants had 35 minutes of possession in this game to the Packers 24. That's an interesting thing. The game plan for the Giants was quite obvious to see. They wanted to get the ball out quick. They didn't care how long it took to get down to the end zone. They were going to be methodical. They did the opposite of what I thought they would do. Because, Jameis Winston likes to throw deep so much. I thought they would be the opposite of this. They were not. A couple other stats to jump out. They were 3 for 4 on fourth down, but only 7 for 14 on third down. So the Packers did a pretty good job on third down getting off the field yesterday. The Giants this is crazy. They ran 70 plays yesterday. The Packers ran 51. So again, guys, it was a pretty weird game in terms of stats. And the stats definitely didn't tell the whole story in this one. Packers had 5 penalties for 48 yards. Giants had 6 for 77. Turnovers were the big one. The Packers had 0 turnovers. The Giants lost a fumble, and they threw an interception. They should have thrown about 20 interceptions. Jameis Winston was just chucking the ball all over the yard. Rushing yards was interesting. I thought the Packers were going to run the ball like crazy yesterday. They did not. They ended up with 128 rushing yards. Now, part of that was because they lost Josh Jacobs to a knee injury. The Giants, though, this is where it kind of stings a little bit. They had 142 yards rushing. So after what we saw the Packers do last week against Saquon, they let Tyrone Tracy, whoever the hell he is, right? I know who he is. I'm sort of being facetious, right? But certainly not a big name running back by any means, run for a pretty good chunk in this game. So, again, stats don't really tell the whole story. They had very few drives. The Giants, they just took a lot of time on their drives. So, all right, let's get into rankings. So the Packers, obviously 6-3-1 is their record currently. Their point differential is 240 points scored over 196 allowed. So their point differential is right about where, and there's a stat that's out there, guys. Maybe you've heard this before, but there's expected win total based off of point differential. They should be at 7 wins right now instead of 6. So potentially 7-3 instead of 6-3-1. That actually feels about right for them in terms of point differential. Rankings currently, their defense jumped up rankings right now. They are 6th in total yards per game, 7th in rushing yards allowed, and 7th in points per game allowed. The offense, 13th in points allowed, 12th in points or yards per game. So again, they definitely rose up the ranks a bit on defense over the last couple weeks. Offensively, again, didn't even get 300 yards in this game. And partially it was because they did not have the ball for even 30 minutes in this one. So obviously this game, guys, it was much closer than we had hoped for. I feel like every time I predict the games anymore, I'm just like praying that it even remotely ends up close to what I said it was going to be. We saw a really impressive performance on defense last week. This week, not so much. I certainly thought this game was going to be more of a blowout. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and we'll talk about this a lot on the podcast today. If just a couple of plays go the other direction in this one, it's probably the blowout that we all thought it would be, right? So this Packers team, essentially 10 games in, right? They got 7 games left, right? This team is massively inconsistent still, and they're still trying to find what their identity is. You could argue on defense, their identity is get pressure with 4, cover up on the back end, stop the run. Yeah, I think that's fair. They definitely have that going for them. On offense, they're a team that wants to run the ball, that really can't run it effectively, and they're inconsistent in pass pro. But the word that I would use for this team right now is just inconsistent, right? As it stands, now granted, I said this multiple times in the game. I screamed it. I don't know if I screamed it, actually. I was pretty calm in this game overall, but I was texting with my cousin Laven, and we were kind of just BSing the whole game, and I ended up turning it off in the fourth quarter and saying, well, I can't watch this anymore. So I was massively frustrated in this game, and obviously when I turned it off, they ended up doing pretty well. obviously. Maybe I should do that more often, just turn it off in the middle of the game. But I was angry during the game, and I said it multiple times. This is not a Super Bowl team right now. And does that mean they won't be in a month? No, but we have only so much to go off of. And at this point, you kind of are who you are. It's 10 games in. There's 7 games left. 5 of those games, by the way, are divisional games, which we'll talk about in a bit. This team reminds me of the 2023 team, which is Jordan's first season. Kind of in the way they lose or the way they play poorly. It's never due. The difference is it's never due to being overmatched. It's never been due to being the less talented team. It's always a case of them beating themselves. And it happened again in the form of drops in this game, both on defense and offense, by the way. Dropped interceptions on defense, dropped first downs and probably touchdowns in other ways. But again, you have to be encouraged with the fact that there were things that were open in this game. Routes were open. They blocked pretty well for the most part. Opportunities were there. So much better than the previous 2 games where it felt like LaFleur was in a slump. And again, as badly as they've played, they're still 6-3-1. So if you're going to make mistakes, obviously you'd rather make them when you're winning. And we saw again how great this offense can be when everything's clicking. And I think we're close to seeing that. This is the important part of their schedule. It's now or never, right? If they continue to play like this, that we saw in this game from this team, they're not going to be a Super Bowl team. They're just not. They could end up missing the playoffs altogether, honestly. But it could go the other way too. They could get hot and they could go on a run. You know, Toyotathon has begun, and those of you that don't know the joke with Toyotathon, whenever Toyotathon kicks off, Jordan Love goes crazy. And that's kind of when his, hot streak started in 2023. He was playing pretty average football last year until Toyotathon kicked off. And this was Jordan's best game since that Cowboys game in the playoffs last year. We'll talk about that in a minute. LaFleur always has a really good record in December, and there are 4 pivotal games in December. There's still 3 in this month that are massively important too. But, back to what I said about being inconsistent. At this point in the season, being inconsistent is what their identity is. And so far, even the games that they've won, they've been anything but consistent. The only 2 games where they played even close to a full 4 quarters was week 1 and week 2. Now, again, maybe that changes. Maybe it happens this week. And if I had to predict, I do think it will turn around. I hope it's this week when I'm at the game. But again, 6-3-1 through 10 games. Not where I think we all hoped it would be. To be honest, I actually am okay with the record. I thought that they were going to lose some of the games that they won. I still thought they were going to lose that Lions game in week 1. I thought they were going to lose the Eagles game. And then I thought they would lose the Steelers game. And then before going into the season, we thought maybe Joe Burrow might be playing in the Bengals game. He wasn't. So obviously that game felt a little more difficult at that time. But 6-3-1, it's not so much about the record as it is just about the way it's gone. Anyway, let's talk about players of the game. Players of the game in this one, you got to start with Jordan Love. And this game is a test of football knowledge, whether or not you know football. And you guys can watch it in real time. Watch the national pundits. I already saw Adam Shine today about how bad Jordan was for 3 quarters. Like, dude, you didn't even watch the freaking game, bro. Like, so pay attention to the local radio hosts that are Aaron Rodgers humpers. There's a bunch of them out there. I don't remember the dude's name, but one of them thinks Jordan Love sucks. You can tell how much people know about football based on how you think Jordan Love played in this one. Did they look at the box score? Did they watch like a couple of plays? Did they see what they wanted to see? Like, we'll see, right? Pay attention this week, and you guys will be able to tell how much that person knows about football based on how they think about it. Ask your friends and family, how'd Jordan play? They probably don't have a clue if they think that he played bad. This was the single most impressive game that Jordan's played really since that Cowboys game in the playoffs. To have faced this insane defensive line, they were basically playing in a wind tunnel too, by the way. He had 6 drops on offense. He had a bum shoulder. He went and hurt his shoulder in this game. Just a crazy, crazy amount of circumstances going against them in this one, him in this one. And then to come out with a game-winning drive, a super clutch game-winning drive, it's just incredibly impressive. He finished with a PFF grade of 93.6 in this one. That's the highest of his career. And he's currently number 1 in the NFL right now in EPA per play. And EPA per play, guys, it stands for expected points over average. So again, it's an efficiency metric. Expected points added is what it means. Sorry, not over average. He's top 10 in every single stat, top 5 in all the big ones. Again, didn't look great statistically in this one. And that's why they're going to look at this game and think that he's not playing well. Again, anyone that says this, quickly dismiss their comments. Simple as that. I can't wait to see what Cowherd says this week. But Adam Schein's a douche. He thought the Packers were going to turn into a pathetic franchise when they lost Rodgers, and LOL. I'll just say that. He also thought the Jets were going to win the Super Bowl in 2023. LOL. Okay, Jordan. He was credited with 3 big-time throws from PFF in this one. 0 turnover-worthy plays in this one. That's obvious. All that on a bum shoulder. His worst play was that the injury to his shoulder. He should not have run full contact into that linebacker. That was ridiculously stupid play, right? Every other play he made, though, today, every drop back, he knew where he was going with the ball, and he delivered it. Now, again, 6 drops in this one. Technically, it's, I would say 5 drops, to be honest. One of them didn't count. But if everybody had caught the ball, he would have been 19 of 24, which is a 80% completion percentage, by the way, 266 yards and 11.1 yards per attempt. Now, if that was his stat line, everybody would have been going crazy in the good way, right? And that last drive, just so effing clutch, guys. He's got 4 game-winning drives this season. So, again, the Jordan Love isn't clutch thing should also be quickly dismissed from anyone you hear say that. And you have to think, and I don't want to, obviously this is nothing against Josh Jacobs, right? You have to think that Josh Jacobs going down in this game helped Matt a little bit say, okay, Jordan, go win it for us. This felt like a different game plan, right? Jordan threw 24 passes in this game. 13 of those went at least 10 yards down the field. So they clearly were trying to test the secondary, which was the right move. We said in the pregame, if you remember right, as long as you can block it up, you can kill the secondary. And that's kind of what they did in this one. So Jordan Love is my player of the game by far. Next player of the game to talk about was Malik Willis. I cannot say enough about what he did in this one. So Jordan gets hurt. They're starting to get some momentum going. The Giants just scored. Jordan's coming down, and then he gets hit, and then he goes out. And you see Jordan going to the tent, and I thought maybe concussion. Some people were talking concussion on Twitter as well. Anyway, Malik comes in. He just walks them down the field. And again, I cannot say enough about that, guys. The insane rocket launcher throw to Christian Watson in the end zone. It was a crazy catch, by the way, but he threw that ball like 100 miles an hour. He had the long run on 3rd down on the zone read play. And honestly, if they don't get that touchdown on that drive, they lose this game. So ironically, people started catching the ball when he came in, which is interesting. I haven't talked about this much. And I know the Packers don't have a lot of money to spend, but I really think that they should try to bring him back. He's probably going to want a starting job somewhere. I don't know if he's going to get one. He'll probably want a place where he can compete for a starting job, somewhere like the Jets maybe. But I think they should at least try to bring him back. Every time the dude's come in, he's played well, and they've won the majority of the games he's come in. So again, let's just say they don't get a touchdown on that drive. They don't win this game. So you could argue Malik Willis was the MVP of this game. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say it's pretty close. Christian Watson was my next one. You guys remember from the pregame episode. I'll say it. I said it then. I'll say it again. Christian Watson is the number 1 receiver on this team. He's the one that everyone's always talking about, right? Oh, they need a number 1. He's their number 1. He had a pretty bad drop up the sideline in this game. That one was really frustrating because they went 3 and out after getting a 4th down stop. That was super frustrating again, but he made a ton of great plays. 4 for 46 in this one, 4 catches, 46 yards. He got 2 touchdowns. The touchdown up the right sideline in the 4th quarter was, first of all, an insane throw from Jordan. But for Christian to be able to get in there between the 2 guys and catch the ball was equally impressive, I would say. The Willis touchdown was insane too, right? Watson kind of broke open late there, scrambled drill type stuff. Willis threw it 100 miles an hour, and Christian Watson caught it. It was contested, by the way, too, with his hands. And that Josh Wiley touchdown, also you could give to Christian Watson, too. He ran a perfect pick play. Pick plays are tough because you can't hit anybody past the line of scrimmage. You can't literally drill somebody 5 yards downfield and take them out of the play. He did it perfect timing, perfect spot, and that sprung Josh Wiley open for the touchdown. So I thought a really, really good game from Christian. He caught the ball pretty consistently. I should say this. He didn't catch the ball consistently because he dropped one, right? But you just see such a more confident Christian Watson this year, right? The one thing that I've always struggled with him is he's massive. He's 6'4", 220, runs probably a 4.29 if you actually timed him. And I know he ran a 4.36 or whatever, but he's really, really fast. The one thing that always has perplexed me about him is his size. He just never makes contested catches. And so far this season, he's played 3 games. He's made every one of them. So you have to be really happy with Watson. Savion Williams, I cannot say enough about what Savion did here too. That third down catch, the 30-yard completion, was one of the biggest plays of the whole season. And I heard Andy Herman mention this from Pack-A-Day. That could have been the play that saved their season. Because I don't know what happens if they don't convert that third down. You know, that's the drive where they went and they scored the go-ahead touchdown there. At that point, it's 19-20. The Giants have been moving the ball all game. They did move the ball again, by the way, when the Packers gave it back to them. I cannot say enough about Savion on that one. He broke open late. You know, Jordan Love doing an old Aaron Rodgers, waving him downfield, like, go deep, like literally like two-hand touch style. And Savion goes down there and makes an insane contested catch. Now, again, you guys know I'm a big Savion guy. I don't think he's ready right now to be a full-time receiver. I'm totally fine with the fact that he's a gadget guy right now, but he has the ability to do what he did on a consistent basis. He did that it's all over his tape at TCU, contested catches. He had the highest contested catch rate in college his senior season. So again, to this point, he's only run a few actual receiver routes. They've definitely they've made him the gadget guy, which again, I'm fine with that for now. But eventually he's going to be a wide receiver and he's going to be a contributor for this team. And this kind of just showed a preview of things to come. And let's not forget, some of you may have saw this pregame, he was in a walking boot when he came off the plane. He's been dealing with a foot injury. So again, to come in here, he played 2 snaps, got the ball on both snaps. Insane clutch catch. Say that 10 times fast. From Savion Williams. Micah Parsons. Micah yet again carried this team from a pass rushing perspective. He had the huge sack on 4th down to end the Giants' drive there. And then the game ended with a sack fumble from him on a hustle play, right? He just showed there how clutch he is. That's the biggest thing with Micah. He's so damn clutch. And, you know, we'll talk about his stats from this game. The pass rush overall was pretty absent in this game. So Micah ended up getting 6 pressures in this one, despite being double teamed like the majority of the time. Just another proof of why the Packers needed to make that trade. And I really cannot imagine where they'd be right now. They would not have 6 wins. I can tell you that for a fact if they hadn't traded for Micah, straight up. So again, tip your cap to Goody for making that trade. Last one really quick. Daniel Whalen, the punter. He had a couple insane punts in this game. Everybody that was at that game, and you could see it on the broadcast too, it was so damn windy. So for Whelan to go down and be able to punt like that, I mean, he literally flipped the field completely on that last Giants drive. You cannot say enough about how well he punted in this one. He's been punting all year really well. He's the number 1 rated punter in the NFL from PFF. So again, tip your cap to Danny Whelan. Okay, top 5 on offense from PFF. Jordan Love was number 1 with a 93.6. 3 big-time throws, 85% adjusted completion percentage, which means that he delivered the ball perfectly 85% of the time, and people dropped the ball a lot. He was 7 for 11 on 3rd down, and it would have been higher if it wasn't for the drops, by the way. Massive game from Jordan, his best game of his career from PFF. Number 2, Aaron Banks, 83.4. Last week, he played god-awful. He was the lowest-graded player on the team by far. It was the worst game of his career last week. And he bounced back in this one in a big way against a really good defensive line, by the way. Had an 83 pass blocking grade in this one. Just really, really good sign from Aaron Banks here. Hopefully he can keep that momentum going from this game. Number 3, Christian Watson, 82.1. It could have been even better if it wasn't for that drop, right? Zach Tom, number 4, 72.4. He did leave with an injury for, I believe it was 6 snaps. He did come back in. Again, he's been below his standard this year, but he's definitely been the best lineman on this team by far. And then number 5, Matthew Golden. He had that really nice catch down the sideline on the scramble drill. He beat his guy cold on the PI that was down the field. He definitely was open on that play. And then he did have another one down the sideline in the 4th quarter on the game-winning drive. I thought he misplayed that one. Jordan put it perfectly on that one. It would have been a tough catch. just because it was kind of like it sort of switched shoulders on him. But Jordan put it out there perfectly. He should have caught that one. I think if you asked Matthew, he would have said he should have caught that too. Again, offensively, they scored 27 and they won. Again, I'm pretty pleased with how well the offensive line held up. That was a massive concern for me. This defensive line is nasty. And yeah, there were moments in this game where Jordan was under pressure, but when you have a D-line like that, that's just going to happen, right? The offensive line gave up 9 pressures overall, so not great. Morgan, Walker, and Ryan had pass blocking grades below 50, which is not great, but I do think that they improved from last week. I know that's a low bar to clear. And I will say this, seeing what the Eagles did to the Lions last night, I feel a lot better about how the offensive line played against the Eagles for the Packers. Jalen Phillips has just gone crazy since he got on the Eagles, and he went crazy last night. So I do think that it was more about how good the Eagles were last week versus how bad the Packers were. But the drops are the main thing here that made this thing worse than it should have been, right? There were just, I didn't think there were a lot of mental errors in this game. There weren't a bunch of, pre-snap penalties and holds. No covering up the lineman, whatever the hell it was last week, the procedural penalty. And yeah, a couple penalties, but nothing crazy. But if all those balls were caught, this would have been a 40-plus point type of performance. I really believe that. So you got to be encouraged just from the improvement, but they still left a lot on the table. Against a much better team than this, they probably would have lost the game, right? But hopefully you can take some momentum from this and carry it over to next week. The main thing to watch this week is the Josh Jacobs injury. So we just found out, I'm recording this on Monday. It seems like he's going to be fine, but there's still an off chance that he's going to miss the game this weekend. And that's one you don't want to miss. But I do think that, maybe this ends up being a game where Matt says, Jordan, go win it for us. Last thing, play calling I thought was much better in this one. There were a lot less second down runs and run, pass type of patterns in this game. And I wonder if it was because Josh Jacobs went out. And I felt like there was a lot more variety in the passing game. There was a lot more play action in this one for sure. And on those play action plays, Jordan had a lot of time. So I'll just say this. I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged on offense. And hopefully they can carry it over against a Vikings defense that struggled this year. So we'll see. Top 5 on defense from PFF. Micah was number 1, 89.6, his second highest grade of the season. 6 pressures in this one. He had a 90 pass rushing grade. So again, he won a lot yesterday, despite being double teamed, triple teamed at one point. But a lot of those plays he won on, and these are ones that didn't count as pressures, by the way. Jameis Winston got it out quick, or it was able to get away from Micah. And I thought the Giants overall played a really good game. They called a good game in this one. There were more than a couple of plays where, Micah won really, really quickly, and then it was already just a design screen to the other side or something, and Jameis had the ball out right away. So again, it's hard to be disappointed with Micah's performance. And after last week kind of being shut out, I thought it was really, really strong. He's just so damn clutch, right? I said this earlier. When you need him to make a play, he makes a play. And I think that's why he's at the top of the Defensive Player of the Year award list right now. 8 sacks on the season, 56 pressures, despite barely playing in the first 2 games. Massive tip of the cap from Micah. Keyshawn Nixon was number 2, 84.5. Felt like a worse game from Nixon, if I'm being honest. He did make some plays, right? But it just felt like he was getting beat a few too many times too. It's hard to say. Certainly not an expert on cornerback play, but I thought he got beaten a few more than that. His coverage grade was 83.7. And I'll say this in a minute with Carrington Valentine too. He was in the top 5. These Giants receivers are really bad. So I'll just leave it at that. Xavier McKinney playing his old team, 74.1. There was a near pick in the second quarter that he could have had. I thought Jameis, should have had about 10 picks in this game. I know he wanted to pop out a bit more in this game playing his old team, but I thought X played a good game in this one. Javon Bullard was number 4, 72.5. Javon Bullard's playing just really, really well, guys. Sneaky well. 81 coverage grade. He should have picked off Jameis Winston until he got body checked by Isaiah McDuffie, which was super frustrating, by the way. I was literally in the bathroom and my wife yelled that McDuffie broke up a pick. I'm like, what? And then sure enough, you look, and Javon Bullard should have had that pick on that one. Number 5, Carrington Valentine, 71.5. Another good game from CV. The biggest stand on his resume is dropping at least 2 interceptions in this one. So, again, still like what I saw from him. Defensively, disappointing, right? The pass rush, I know Andrew Thomas is good. Illuminor, their other tackle, is good too. But to only get 12 pressures in this game, I just thought that was disappointing. Rashawn Gary is just completely MIA, guys. And ironically in this one, I don't know why, but Kingsley Enagbare outsnapped him. So I hope somebody asks LaFleur about that this week. I do think the Giants' game plan was good. They tried to get the ball out quick. They had a nice mix of run and pass. They used play action quite a bit. The screens, I mentioned that. They were well timed. They did it like 3 times, by the way. The biggest disappointment, obviously, was not catching those picks. If they just catch 2 of those 4, this would have been a totally different game. And the biggest gut-wrencher of the game was when Edgerrin Cooper missed that tackle on the screen in the third quarter. They had the Giants backed up. It's 3rd and 15. They dumped the ball off to Tyrone Tracy. Edge Cooper has him completely wrapped up, and he doesn't finish the play. He converts a 3rd down, and then eventually they score on that drive. So it was disappointing. The other thing, obviously, the Giants possessed the ball for a long time. 34 minutes of possession. Actually, 35, sorry. And it just felt like they got moved too easily on the D-line. And, they ran the ball effectively to the point where it felt like Singletary and Tracy were just getting a lot of extra yards that they shouldn't have. Even still, 20 points on the road against the home team. Pretty good performance overall. Again, biggest concern, lack of pass rush. Really good teams are going to take him out, Micah Parsons out. Somebody else is going to have to step up. And you really would hope that your $25 million a year guy in Rashawn Gary steps up a bit more. Devontae Wyatt playing for a big contract right now. You think, where is he at? Didn't even have a pressure in this game. His worst game yet. LVN, he's just getting back from injury. He's a top 13 pick. I just cannot imagine where they'd be if they didn't trade for Micah. I know I just said it, but it's a brutal thought. The cornerback room, again, the reason that they haven't added corners is because their cornerback success is predicated on pressure. So again, you have good stuff from Carrington Valentine, solid play from Keyshawn, but for that to be the right call, they have to get pressure on the quarterback, and they got to have other guys step up. LVN coming back, that's going to help. He almost played in this game, but he's not that big of a force multiplier, at least as far as we know. Devontae Wyatt needs to play better, right? He had a 32 grade in this one. Completely blasphemous. That's so bad. And right, he's still coming back from an injury. I'm not trying to pile on the guy, but you'd like to see more from him. So defensively, it was disappointing, to say the least. They really should have probably only given up about 10 points in this game. Final thoughts. Well, 7 games left. 7 games left, and 5 are division games. 2 are against the Bears and Vikings, then the Lions game on Thanksgiving. And then you got the 2 AFC games, the Broncos-Ravens. You could make a pretty good argument that the season starts right now. Packers are in second place behind the effing Bears right now, which is painful to say. And those of you that want LaFleur fired, I know some of you do, the way he gets this team to play in these division games is going to be everything. You've heard Goody say it. You heard Mark Murphy say it in the past. I'm sure policy is the same way. The way you play your division games matters a lot to the Packers. And that's why last year, right, despite winning 11 games, everybody was so pissed because they went 1-5 in the division. Now, there's no reason this team shouldn't be jacked the hell up to play these next 5 games or all the division games. They lost to the Vikings twice last year, what I would say badly. The Bears beat them in Week 18, which they should never have won that game. And they nearly beat them in the earlier game, too, if it wasn't for the blocked field goal. So, again, they need to win the vast majority of these division games. They can probably afford to lose 1. They're not going to make the playoffs, let alone win the division, if they don't at least win 4. I'm just going to say 4 of those games. If they don't win the vast majority, in general, of their games, they're not going to make the playoffs, let alone win the division, which is where the bar starts. The Vikings, this week, they're not a good football team, guys. Daniel McCarthy is not the guy, at least not this year. And I want to be clear, I think that this year he's not the guy. I think he's shown that he can be a good quarterback someday. But they've struggled to run the ball. They don't protect very well on offense. They give up a lot of rushing yards. The schemed pressures that Brian Flores has been so good at, they just haven't gotten home like they did last year. And when you're not getting home against this secondary, there's going to be problems. If you guys think the Packers corners are bad, go put on a Vikings game. They're bad. So again, this game against the Vikings this weekend, this should be one that they win. Then we have the Bears, and I loathe the Bears. Those of you that know me well, I hate the Bears. But there's been a massive improvement for them this season. You can't deny it. They got some really good young pieces. They've won the vast majority of their games on the last drive of the game. A lot of comeback wins. Most of those wins are against bad teams, to be clear. They have yet to beat what I would call a good team. And this week, they're getting lucky again because Rodgers might not play this week against for the Steelers because of his wrist injury. So they might get another win this week. So I would argue that the Packers are a really bad matchup for the Bears. I'll say that right now. I think the Packers should win the home game for sure. I do think the away game at Soldier Field is going to be tough, but they should win that home game. And despite being in first place, the Bears, they only have a 10% chance to win the division. So it kind of says where the odds makers feel about Detroit. The tough part of their schedule is coming up now. So we'll see what it looks like after this stretch of games. The Lions game on Thanksgiving, that's the big one. If they win that game, I think they're in the driver's seat to win the division, Packers. I think they're going to be revved up to play that one, I would hope. I think you saw in week 1, you can beat this team the way they did it. Get pressure on Jared Goff, and you saw it again last night, by the way. If you do that, you win on defense. Their defense is still not getting any pressure outside of Hutchinson, and even he hasn't been that good, guys. He's slowed down a lot. He was a complete non-factor in that game last night. Straight up. So I'll say this. I say all that to say this game wasn't what we needed to see from the Packers. It was way closer than it should have been. But I expect to see a different Packers team for these divisional games. I really do. I think they took it personally last year that they went 1-5 against the division. If you can get to 11 wins right now, 11-5-1, beat the Bears and Lions, the division, it's yours, right? The toughest game on the schedule was the Broncos game, in my opinion. They just beat the Chiefs. They lost J.K. Dobbins, unfortunately, but that defense is insanely good. And despite the fact I don't believe in that offense too much for the Broncos, that defense is going to give the Packers a lot of problems. The Ravens game, we'll see. The Ravens have won 4 in a row, I think. They look really good. That's a tough matchup for the Packers, even at home. But again, this is where the season starts. It starts this weekend. All right, guys, so this week, it's the crazy season for me at work, so I'll probably just do a quick Vikings preview show. It'll be short and sweet. I know I've said it 10 times, but I'll be at the Vikings game. I'm super excited about that. It needs to be a convincing win. I think if they can win this game, and I don't even think they need to win it big. They just need to win it. This could bring some momentum forward for them, and they could carry it going forward. So I will see you guys on the Vikings preview show, probably Friday morning, if I had to guess. It'll be short and sweet. And then I'll come at you next week with a recap of the Vikings game. Appreciate you guys listening. They squeaked one out, 6-3-1. Hopefully the season begins now. I appreciate you guys listening. I'll see you next time. Go Pack Go.